Today I'll show you a common mistake in this Scandinavian gambit line. Many players think the quick queen attack wins, but in reality it backfires, and black can turn the tables if they know the right move. Let's explore it. The Scandinavian defense begins when black plays the pawn to d5. After white captures the pawn, black usually recaptures, and then white develops the knight to c3, immediately attacking the black queen. In the classical variation, the queen retreats to a5. Normally white would continue with the pawn to d4, but there is a very interesting gambit line with the pawn to b4. What is fascinating about this version is that although this gambit has been known for at least 20 years, and we are about to look at the very first recorded game where it was played, players still keep falling into this trap again and again. In fact, according to the database, in most games even today, black continues to walk right into it. First of all, white is attacking the black queen, so black must respond to that threat. Most likely black will capture. Even though white has given up a pawn, this follows the classical gambit style. You sacrifice a pawn in order to open more files for your pieces. White also continues attacking black and keeps gaining tempos by chasing the black queen, aiming for quick development and an eventual attack. More specifically, when white advances the knight to b5, the threat is clear. White is now attacking again, this time threatening to capture the pawn and fork the black king and rook. Because of that, black must address the threat to this pawn. Of course, black could theoretically move the king, but that would expose the king to danger. Another option would be for the black knight to move to a6 to defend the pawn, but placing a knight on the edge of the board is strategically undesirable. Therefore, the move that most players choose here, and indeed the correct move, is for the black queen to retreat to a5. This both defends the pawn and places the queen in relative safety in case white cannot find another way to attack it. After black plays queen to a5, white simply develops with bishop to c4. At first glance, this looks like just a normal developing move. At this point, black often feels quite comfortable. They are a pawn up, and it seems as though white's attacking chances have come to an end. Many players think, all right, I will just trade off this annoying knight and then enjoy a position where I am a pawn ahead. Because of that, most players in this situation choose pawn to c6, which is a very standard move in the Scandinavian defense. However, in this specific line, that move is actually a losing mistake. Another move that is just as bad, and just as popular, is pawn to a6. Both moves give white a strong tactical opportunity. Let us first look at pawn to c6. After this move, white has powerful resources that completely turn the game around. Later, I will also show you what to do if your opponent is more cautious and avoids the trap, so that you can still play for a win. This is important because many players who learn this line rely only on the trick itself, and once their opponent knows how to avoid it, they have no real plan and end up losing. A sound approach means you are not depending on a single tactical trap, but are prepared to outplay your opponent even when they know the idea. Now, let us go through the main trap after pawn to c6. Here white delivers a crushing tactical blow with bishop captures pawn on f7. This idea is extremely difficult to spot over the board, so even players at an advanced level often overlook it. The sacrifice looks counterintuitive, but it sets up a devastating sequence. After king captures bishop on f7, white immediately continues with queen to h5 check. At first, it still seems confusing. Why would white sacrifice more material just for another check? Black might believe they can easily defend against it. For example, pawn to g6 looks perfectly fine since it appears to shut down the attack on the king. From the surface, it looks as though white's initiative is finished, but this is exactly where the deeper point of white's play becomes clear. By placing the queen on h5, white is not only checking the black king, but also targeting the black queen sitting on a5. With this alignment, white can unleash a discovered check. By playing knight to d6 check, the white knight delivers a direct check to the king, and at the same time, the white queen opens up along the diagonal to capture the black queen on a5. This powerful tactical idea completely turns the game around, showing the true strength of the gambit. So after pawn captures and white recaptures the black queen on a5, white has already won a queen. Let us return to the original game where this trap was first played. In that game, black recognized the danger and understood that they had to deal with the threat of the discovered check. For this reason, moving the king to e6 is not a valid solution. If black plays king to e6, then knight to d4, check still comes, and the black queen is lost in the same way. Therefore, king to a6 does not work. The only way for black to avoid this immediate tactical disaster is to play king to f6. However, pushing the king so far forward into the center of the board is extremely risky. The king becomes completely exposed, and white can continue attacking without hesitation. White plays bishop to b2 check, forcing another defensive move from black. The only reasonable way for black to cover the check is pawn to e5. But now white strikes again with bishop captures pawn on e5 check. The black king must move, whether to e6 or e7, it makes no real difference. White then follows up with knight to c7, creating an incredibly beautiful and satisfying position. At first glance, it may not even be clear what the winning idea is, but the checkmating threat becomes apparent. White is threatening queen to e8 checkmate. It is a stunning tactical conclusion. And even if black tries to defend by pushing pawn to g6 or making another defensive move, that still fails to yet another discovered check. For example, bishop to d6 check once again opens the line of attack, and white is able to pick up the black queen. This combination is not only effective, but also remarkably elegant, an astonishing sequence of moves that shows the true power of the gambit. If you decide to play this gambit, it is very important to understand not only the main trap, but also the other possible lines that can arise. Let us go step by step. The game begins with pawn captures pawn on d5, and then queen captures pawn on d5. White continues with knight to c3, attacking the black queen. Now at this point, black is not forced to retreat the queen to a5. Technically, the black queen could go back to d8 or even choose some other square. Those are playable, although not very ambitious. For the purposes of studying the gambit, however, we will stick with the classical line, which is queen to a5. This is where the gambit begins. White pushes forward with pawn to b4, inviting the black queen to capture material. Captures knight on b5, and this is exactly the position where white's trap ideas start to come into play. Now, here is where many players make a mistake in their thinking. A very common error is to believe that white can immediately play queen to h5, and that this move alone should be enough to win the game. At first glance, it looks extremely strong. The white queen on h5 would be threatening queen captures pawn on f7, which is supported by the white bishop on c4. At the same time, white is also creating the powerful threat of knight to d6 check. That check would not only attack the king, but also open up the line for the white queen to capture the black queen on a5. From the surface, this double threat looks like it should be decisive. You are attacking f7 with force, you are threatening a fork with the knight, and you have this idea of a discovered attack against the black queen. It is very tempting for many players to believe that the move queen to h5 immediately delivers the same kind of crushing blow as in the main trap. However, this is not actually the correct move order. The precise and winning sequence starts with bishop captures pawn on f7 check first, followed only afterward by queen to h5. Without making that sacrifice, the immediate queen to h5 does not achieve everything that white hopes for. Still, because of how convincing the threats appear on the board, many players fall into this mistake, assuming it is basically the same idea. For example, if black plays pawn to g6 to block the diagonal, it looks like knight to d6 check should win the queen. But that is not the case. Black can simply move the king, and now the white knight is pinned to the queen and cannot move. If white tries queen captures pawn on f7, black replies with knight to h6, defending the bishop and attacking the queen. The white knight remains hanging, and black will capture it next move, gaining a decisive material advantage. This is why immediately playing queen to h5 does not work. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.